You would be surprised to know that Bear Grylls' biggest fear was heights. In fact, this fear wasn't just a normal one, it was a rare condition that makes people terrified of heights. But the interesting part is that just a few years later, that same timid Bear Grylls' show began with him jumping out of helicopters from massive heights. Sounds quite surprising, doesn't it? He was a key member of the UK military special forces and was highly skilled in parachuting. In 1996, during a mission in Zambia, he jumped from a height of 16,000 feet. That time, his parachute failed to work. Although he had deployed it while jumping, it didn't open properly in the air, causing Bear Grylls to fall toward the ground at a rapid speed. Within moments, he realized his parachute was no longer functioning. Bear tried desperately to get it to open fully, and while struggling, he eventually crashed into the ground, hitting rocks and trees. After the fall, Bear Grylls suffered a massive injury to his back, but even after falling from such a height, he remained conscious. He couldn't move at all. He just lay there on the ground, groaning in intense pain. He didn't give up hope, thinking his teammates might come to save him. Meanwhile, the pain was becoming so excruciating that it was unbearable. Later, he remarked, "Death would have been much better than enduring that agony." After lying there for a long time, his teammates arrived and took him to a hospital in Africa. Once the doctor gave him an injection in his back, the pain slowly began to subside. Although he felt like he might be recovering, the doctor told him he would never be able to walk again. Hearing this, the world of 31-year-old Bear seemed to turn dark in an instant. When he saw his X-ray report, he found that 3 vertebrae in his back were broken. To say they were broken would be an understatement, as his bones were practically crushed to powder. He couldn't even move slightly. He said, "I suffered more from the 1 year in the hospital trying to fuse those bones back together than I did from the pain of the fall itself." Lying in the hospital bed, he spent all day worrying that he might never be healthy again. His will to live had completely died. Even so, Bear Grylls' sole purpose for living had been traveling to new places and embarking on adventurous journeys. But this one injury had stripped everything away from him. Thinking about this, he spent night after night without sleep. Depression surrounded him from all sides. He even began to hate himself. Nearly 2 months had passed, but there were no signs of recovery. On the contrary, the pain in his body was increasing day by day, and his body was slowly breaking down. Seeing his condition, he became more frustrated every day. He was breaking down from the inside. Nothing felt good anymore. He would burst into tears at the slightest thing, and depression gripped him even tighter. But those who knew Bear Grylls knew he was a very positive-minded person. They all believed he would definitely come out of this situation. But it wasn't happening because Bear was broken inside. He couldn't see any ray of hope because all his dreams had been shattered. Suddenly, one night while lying in bed, he looked at a picture hanging on the wall. It was a picture of the Himalayas. Since childhood, he and his father had a profound desire to conquer the Himalayas. He noticed that just as dust had settled on the picture, a thick layer of dust had also settled on his desires and dreams. No one was with him that night. He was completely alone. Yet, gathering a lot of courage, he somehow reached the picture to wipe off the dust and began to think about how he could find the strength to save himself and how he would conquer those Himalayan mountains. Thinking about all this, he fell asleep. This thought became deeply embedded in Bear Grylls' subconscious mind. The next morning, waking up, he remembered something his grandmother used to say. In his childhood, his grandmother told him, "Bear, whatever happens in life happens for the best. Humans find ways to make themselves happy or sad. Whenever you are in trouble, remember that whatever is happening is by the Creator's will, and the Creator can never let anything bad happen." At that time, he couldn't grasp the meaning of those words. Bear then began to think, true, he could have died in that accident, but he is alive. Surely the Creator has something good in store for him. After that, all his worries vanished. Whether he would ever be able to walk again or return to the special forces, these overthinking thoughts vanished into thin air. By reducing this overthinking, he began to find mental peace. Simultaneously, his negative stress began to decrease. He started healing his mind before his body. When the mind is well, the body is bound to follow. A few days after bringing his mind under control in this way, his physical health began to improve. His bones started to fuse. During that time, he remembered a quote from his closest friend, Jamie. Jamie had told him, "A person's birth and rebirth happen only by the Creator's will, and through this injury, you had a rebirth. Now you were like a small child who has no worries about the past and no worries about the future. If you want to express gratitude, do it for the present." That is why Bear Grylls often says, our life rarely gives a second chance, and if it ever does, we must be grateful for it. Yes, he was grateful for his life, his broken back, and his dreams. Holding a picture of Mount Everest, he said, "After I recover, I will stand on the summit of this Everest myself." In Bear Grylls' entire period of depression, if there was one great achievement, it was the goal he set during that time. Though he couldn't even walk then, he vowed to conquer Mount Everest. Can you imagine? A crippled man planning to conquer Mount Everest. He started telling the people around him that he wanted to climb Everest after recovering. They didn't take his words very seriously, but he was determined. Thus, his mind and body shared the same goal. They began to work as one to heal Bear. 3 months after that horrific parachuting accident, the pain began to subside, and after 8 months, he was released from the hospital. Within just 1 year, he was completely healthy. Although doctors advised him against undergoing military training again, it was impossible to earn money without a job. Meanwhile, Bear needed $25,000 to fulfill that dream, plus more for training to climb the Himalayas. He applied for sponsorship to hundreds of American companies to raise this money, but everyone rejected him. Even after so many rejections, he didn't stop. He talked to many others, but everyone disappointed him. Finally, an armed forces charity agreed to help him fulfill his dream. Exactly 18 months after that horrific parachuting accident, on May 16, 1998, Bear fulfilled his childhood dream. His journey to conquering Mount Everest was a different story. It was not easy at all. While conquering the Himalayas, he saw 4 of his assistants lose their lives before his very eyes. Bear himself narrowly escaped death twice. He earned the fame of being the youngest Briton to conquer Everest at the time. Then, many people started inviting him to various seminars, and documentaries were made about him. Finally, discovery gave him the opportunity that helped him gain worldwide fame. After that, everyone began to recognize him through Man vs. Wild. You are probably one of them too. And all that's left is for you to find yourself. Because a man whose spine was literally crushed to powder, whose doctors said it would never be possible again, whose neighbors said it was impossible, and who he himself had believed it might not be possible, that man showed he could conquer the world. Then what is your problem? The Creator has already given you everything.